Aston Villa have had a very busy window, you have to say, and it all, of course, surrounded Jack Grealish on the right of your screen, right at the top, who went out for $139 million. They spent some of that money before he went because they knew he was going, and some afterwards. Emiliano Buendia, what a good player from Norwich. Leon Bailey, the Jamaican. I think I'm right in saying Robbie Earle, $42 million. Danny Ings, $35 million. Ashley Young, free. Axel Tuanzebe on loan from Manchester United. So some very intriguing names. And we're going to go now back to David Ornstein in London at the Sky Sports Studios for more on Aston Villa, David, whose owners clearly very ambitious. They don't just want to finish mid-table, do they?
I think there's a bit of a redressing of the balance in the Premier League here, Rebecca, because the Villa owners, Wes Edens and Nassef Sawiris, they're very, very wealthy and they're willing to resist the overtures of the so-called biggest clubs for their players, unless in the case of Grealish, there's a release clause. And not only that they want to invest themselves and they want to quickly get up competitive and try and get towards European football. And that means that when Jack Grealish was on his way out, they wanted to rebuild with that money really quickly, efficiently. There were covert operations that were going, none more so than Danny Ings, who nobody knew about until they announced the signing. Well, if I'm going to speak truthfully, I did. I nearly broke the story, but some things happened that meant I couldn't get it out. Anyway, Villa were so impressive there, and it continues the trajectory that they're on as a club. Under Dean Smith as the manager, who I do think will come under pressure if results don't come, but hopefully for him they will, because he's really impressive. They've had changes to his backroom staff as well, but they seem to be doing OK so far. The chief executive, Christian Purslow, spoke publicly about how they really analysed how they could replace Grealish, and what they decided to do was spread things out across the pitch in a way that they didn't do before. So they are not now so reliant on Jack Grealish. And that could be a significant risk, you could say, because he was so good for them, but a pleasant departure because the responsibility will be on more heads. And I'm really excited to see what they can do. But those owners at the top of the club, they will be demanding and they'll want to see Dean Smith and those players deliver.
By the way, the fact that David Ornstein didn't break that story is the headline there, by the way, because he is the breaking news man over in the UK, and that's why he's our Premier League insider. You like the signings, Robbie Earle, don't you?
I do. I think it's always a difficult situation when you've got such a high-profile player like Jack Grealish who goes, and you have the money and you've got to spend it. It's a bit like the Gareth Bale money at Spurs. They've done a good job, Rebecca. It's a sneaky good window. I looked through it. Ings was a great buy under the radar. Leon Bailey's a good player. We've seen him in the Bundesliga. Buendia is a great pickup from Norwich. I said, you know, Arsenal were in for him and Villa got him. So they're doing it in different ways, and that's important. They're an ambitious ownership group, as David said. The other thing that I just thought I'd mention and come to my attention yesterday, that they also won the FA Youth Cup last season, and they've got some good young talent who I think they believe over the course of the season will find a spot maybe in the first team at times. So balance of good transfer activity, space for young players. It feels like a club that's going in the right direction and is heading towards the top half of the table and then the top six.
That's important to know, the FA Youth Cup, because that's held in such high regard in Britain. So these owners and Dean Smith, and I've heard other pundits and other journalists talk about that Dean Smith now, this season, really is going to be under a little bit of pressure because, as we heard there, David said, the ambitions of the owners are there for everyone to see. How do you see it, the dynamic?
I don't see, I could be totally wrong, I don't think there is a lot more pressure on Dean Smith. I think there's been steady progression over the last couple of seasons. I think the squad has been getting steadily better. You sow your iconic captain and the team gets better. That's good work. And I think that's the progression. Of course, they'll want to build on last season's 11th, I think it was, last season in the Premier League. That's not going to be easy to do, given the changes. But I see a club that's absolutely moving in the right direction. Can you remember the Randy Lerner years, Rebecca? You know, and the toils of the fans having to deal with that. And then another owner came in that wasn't great. It is about ownership, the Premier League, and they've got two great ones that David talked about that want to put money in, and that's great news for Villa fans.
Do you know what was interesting as well? I was looking back at Villa 2 seasons ago, Rebecca. They stayed up by 1 point last day of the season. It could have been very, very different, and they've stayed up, and they've used that as a platform to go on.
Yeah.
OK, Aston Villa have spent the money. It'll be interesting to see the post-Grealish season for Dean Smith and Aston Villa. Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.